And we're live. I'm Tim Van Milligan. Thanks for coming to RockSim Live. This is where we talk about RockSim and how to use it and how to get the most out of it. Today is kind of a special day again. We got a lot going on. We're going to have a lot of fun. If this is your first time here, we have a comments here on the side of the screen. Go ahead and say hello and where you're from so that I can recognize you and so that I can tell who's in the building. Because other than that, I have no idea who I'm talking to. All I can tell is that we have one viewer so far today. So, we'll, I'm looking over here on my monitor to see who's in the building, who's saying hello. We've got some people waiting for it. But I don't know if this is actually out there yet because there is a little time lag going on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've got some special news today. I want to show you what we're working on for the future so that you can get excited and maybe it might change your plans for the future. So let me show you my screen here. Okay, so this screen right here is our new product that we're working on, and it's called the RockSim Launch Visualizer. The unfortunate thing is down here in the bottom corner is the launch button. It's hidden by my face. See it down here? This is what we're working on, and we're planning on releasing it fall of this year. This is all online. So you don't have to download any software, and when we do an update, we just do it automatically and it rolls out to everybody instantly. And it's really cool. What it does is it allows you to see your launch of a rocket like you're actually there, getting bird's eye view of your rocket taking off, seeing it pitch, yaw, and roll as it's taking off, seeing it on your own launch field. Let's see if I can get it to work this time. The last time I brought it up, the maps weren't working. I tested it earlier and they were, but it's called we're going to be changing some of this graphics here on top. But this is all online, like an online app. You would start here by opening in a rocket design. So you got these buttons here along the side. And if you're on a mobile device like a Windows phone, an iPhone, or any kind of cell phone. You can also use it on a tablet. And so the position of these buttons might be a little bit different, but right now they're right here. So you would start here by selecting your rocket. I've got the Apogee High rocket here sitting on the launch pad. But if I wanted to choose a design, I would go here to choose a design. You have some demo designs here, and then you have user designs, where the things that you've uploaded yourself. So if I already got this one loaded, and then the next thing you would do, and here's the button right here to upload a new design, and I forgot to do again, is to make my cursor bigger so that you can see it. And I always forget to do this every week. So I'm just making my cursor bigger so that as I move it around, you can see where it is. It's a lot easier to see this big old thing floating around than the little tiny one. Okay, so we got our rocket loaded. The next thing we have to do is select a launch site. And you would enter your latitude and longitude coordinates. And there's also some pre-saved launch sites that are in the database, and it's loading them right now. Okay, so you can see we've loaded all the known NAR and Tripoli launch sites. So the NAR is in red, and the Tripoli is in blue. And if you have your own personal launch site, you can load that as well. Those would be in green, and I think there's going to be yellow. So there's public launch sites that everybody will have access to, and then your own private sites. Say you own your own land, but you don't want other modelers to know about it because you're hoarding it. Please don't hoard your launch site. We need more launch sites. But we want, the purpose of this is to spread the rocketry, and the more launch sites there are, the more people get involved. So people always ask, where can I launch? And they're hesitant. And this will hopefully allow us to share launch sites with other people so we can all find them. Oops, I want to go to choose a launch site. I'm going to just select one. And I have this one called the Alamo Rocketeers, and it was a really cool one. Let's see if I can find it again. Okay, Alamo Rocketeers, and click OK. And I'm waiting for this image right here to regenerate, and it's not. So let me refresh my page and see if that will help. Do I have internet connection? Yeah, I know I should have internet connection. Okay, it kicked me back out. The default design is the Avion. Okay, so now we got some comments coming in. We have Al Anzik here, Karen Ma from California, Rosa. We got some people from India. Cool, love that. Okay, so what I'm doing, if you're joining us late, is I'm showing you our launch visualizer, which we're going to be releasing in the fall, and I'm just kind of going through it, kind of seeing, because this is a lot of fun. Wait a minute, I need to choose my design again. Arrow be high, select. As soon as you select the rocket, it sticks it on the launch pad, like right here. And this view right here is three-dimensional, so you can see it. And we tried to give it some orientations. You see the compass rose on the ground. And that will become important here in just a second, right after I choose my launch site. So, okay, so now it's loading. Yeah, so see all these thumbnails here. These are known launch sites. And there's a little bug right now that they're showing up. Basically, they're on the other side of the globe. I'm zooming out, so kind of give you a perspective of where we are. This is Colorado. North is the black arrow, so I'll rotate it around so at least north is, whoa, it's a little fast. Okay, so there's north. Okay, so here's the United States. You can see all the launch sites that we currently have in our database. And I can zoom in on any one of them, or I could just go here. Like I said, I found this cool launch site as I was playing this morning, and I wanted to show you it. I don't know if it was Alamo site number 1, 2, or 3. Let's try number 2 and click OK and see what happens. Okay, it's my map says it's right there. So that's the launch site, and I'm zooming in. No, this is not the one that I saw earlier, but this one will do. So this is somebody's launch site, and usually launch sites are located just by an address, but then you have to position your launch pad where it's going to be in the field. And so to do that, you just double click on the map where you want to put your pad. So I'm going to say I'm going to launch right there, and so I'll put a dot right there, and then you notice down here I have to confirm my launch site. So this is where I'm now launching, and it grabbed the latitude, longitude, and the altitude above sea level of that particular point on the Earth. Okay, so now I have my launch site. Now I got to orient my rocket. So now we're back to this screen here, and this is the orientation button. And you can see I can change the launch rod angle, and as I move that, you can see the launch rod is tweaking. And then I can change the azimuth angle. So let's say I want to go more towards the east. I can give it a starting velocity. I can give it a starting roll orientation, as you see as I roll it around. This will be important if you have a rocket that has kind of like wings on it. On a typical rocket with just 3 fins and a nose cone, it's not so important because it's all pretty much symmetrical. Then we go to our weather conditions, and I have a steady wind right now, and you know, I can set it right here, and I can set the wind direction, you know, by changing this direction, which direction the wind is coming. For some right now, it's just coming out of, I'm going to make it 270 degrees. Click OK. Now I got to choose my rocket motor, and this is a lot like RockSim. Let's see if I can make this screen a little bit bigger. We have a 2-stage rocket, obviously, so I need a motor in the top and the bottom. So I'll just choose an engine, and it brings up an engine list. And I'm going to go down to G motors, and let's do an Aerotech G77. And I got to select the delay, and let's make it a 10-second delay. Click OK. Okay, so that's loaded in the top stage right now. I'm going to load that same motor in the bottom stage, and I'll just do the click all. Okay, so now I have 2 G77s in this rocket, but I need to change the delay in the bottom stage. So I'm going to do a custom delay and make it a 0. To do this in real life, obviously you'd need to use electronics on board your rocket. So now we got a 0-second delay in there. Now I got to set my flight events. So here we have a staging event. So this is when is it going to stage, and I'm going to have a stage at maximum ejection delay. So at 0 seconds after burnout, it's going to stage the rocket. And then I have 2 parachutes. I have one in the top stage, a 24-inch nylon chute, and I'll just deploy that one at maximum ejection delay. And then I have another parachute in the booster stage, and I want to change that one to, let's deploy that one at a time after it reaches apogee. So this is a 2-stage rocket, so it's going to go up and it's going to stage, and this is going to probably coast a little bit. It might coast upwards to apogee. So let's say it's like 2 seconds after apogee, we'll deploy the parachute in the booster stage. Okay, so now we're all set up. So let's go ahead and launch. And then down here in the bottom is the launch button. You can see it's ready to go. So let's go ahead and launch. I'll click on that, and it's getting ready to simulate, and I get one more chance to enter a comment. And you know, if I had a special situation that I want to make note of, I could type that in here. Let's call this episode 27 of RockSim Live. And you can see it's going to charge me some credits because we got to make money. And we're charging, the number of credits is by Newton seconds. So we have 210 Newton seconds of power in this rocket, and I have 6,148 Newton seconds available. This is free. Well, there's going to be 3 levels of users, you know, the free users, and then somebody that's logged in, and then somebody that's actually paid. And the more money you pay, the more credits you get. And then there's other things that you won't be able to do if you don't pay. But so kind of give you a little hint of that. And then we're going to simulate. So now it's running the simulation, and this is going on. This is running on our server in the background. And now it's loading everything. It's loading the background maps. Okay. Oh, our rocket is underground. But you can see our launch site, and you can rotate it around here, or you can use your cursor. Our rocket is underground because our launch doesn't match the maps. Let's see if I don't have an adjustment for that. There is an adjustment in Roxim Pro, but not in the flight visualizer yet. We'll have to. So imagine there's a rocket underground sitting on its launch pad, and down here we can run the animation. See, it came from underground. It's launched. It's taken off. This blue smoke means it's coasting. And I'm going to pause it right here. And I'm going to back out. So I'm going to unzoom a little. Oops, I need to. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here's the launch point down there. This yellow line right here is our booster stage, and the green line is the sustainer stage. And just like we thought, the booster stage did coast up because it's separated right here. I'm zooming in again. It's separated right there, and it's coasted up. And if I zoom in right here, I would probably find my booster stage somewhere. It's in the smoke, I think. Okay, so we have two different color smoke. We have thrust smoke is the whiter color, and then the blue smoke is the tracking delay. And then up here should be the rocket. Yep, there it is. So this, you can see it down here in the mini view, is kind of a zoomed in. So I'm probably giving you vertigo doing this. Oh, there's a rocket. I went too far that way. When you zoom, it always zooms in the very center of the screen, and so you got to kind of put the rocket in the exact center, and then you can zoom. And you got to move it into the center again. Okay, and then we can change our view. So I'm going to change it to a trajectory view. So when I click this button, it's going to reorient the camera that's looking at the rocket. So it's spinning me around, and it reoriented this way. And if you can't find your rocket, now there's this button here, and you can click on that, and it will put the rocket right in the middle of the screen. So now I can zoom. Oops, come on, stay there. Use these buttons down here to zoom in. And so there's my rocket again. So let me zoom back out. All right. So now you can kind of see the trajectory. Yeah, come on. It wants to be really touchy today. And then I'm going to orient it around, kind of get a better view. This rocket's going to go really high. So, and up here we got an altitude. We already got an altitude of 987 feet. And let's just grab the slider bar and continue the trajectory as the rocket's taking off. And there's our apogee point, this little red dot. The color of the dot is important. That tells us that we're outside the weathercocking cone. And you can kind of see this weathercocking cone right here. It's this lighter shaded area. That is a cone that's is a 30-degree cone. And we want the apogee point to stay within that cone, because that means the rocket's going more vertical than sideways, because the safest position is always up. And both the booster stage and the sustainer stage are outside the cone. And let's continue on the simulation here. Come on, grab me. Now it wants to be slow. So now it's coming down under parachute. You can kind of tell because it's a nice straight line. And if I zoom in on that, I'll put the rocket right in the middle. I'll zoom in, and we should see the rocket hanging under its parachute. All right, let me zoom back out, and let's replay, continue playing, zoom out. Come on. I'm trying to zoom out, and it's trying to render in the background while I'm zooming out. Okay, so you can see it's going to kind of land over here. Nice safe landing zone. Nice, nothing over there that we have to worry about. Okay, and then when it gets down to the ground, it's going to run the simulation all over again. So the rocket is taking off already. It's coming out of the ground. You can see down here in the mini view, there's the booster stage fell off. Now the sustainer is burning, and it burned out. It's coasting. And we're not seeing it in the main view because my camera is not looking at it at the right spot. So I need to zoom out a little bit again. We got some other views we can look at. If we click over here, I got a camera view, kind of like a camera on the rocket looking down at the ground. So I'll click on that. And all this blue right here is smoke. So I'm looking through the smoke, so I'm not seeing a lot. So if you want to see the ground, you got to come up here to the preferences and come over here to flame and smoke. And I'm going to turn off the tracking smoke. And immediately now we can see the ground below us. And we can continue the launch looking down on the ground. This is kind of like what your camera would see. It looked a little, you saw a little bit of sky right there. And now what we're seeing here is the top of the parachute, because the camera is actually a little bit above the rocket. And it's actually inside the parachute. So we're seeing the parachute right here. Every rocket is different, so you may not see the parachute as it's coming down. You can kind of see the land down here in the bottom. This mini view right here we can turn off with this button here. Turn that off, and now we get more view of the ground. The unfortunate thing is the camera, to zoom in and out, it actually changes the position of the camera. So just using your scroll wheel, it's not like taking the iris of the lens and looking out like this. It's actually, you're just moving forward and backwards. So we can't really zoom out. If I try it, you know, it always wants to reorient the camera back to where it was originally. So that's kind of why you're seeing that view. We got another view, and this is the ground observer view. So this is like you are standing next to the rocket on the ground. Let me stop it and relaunch it. So right now, here's the rocket, and it's underground. This is why you got this weird grid pattern right here going on. This is launch site dependent. It's because the reason for that it thinks it's underground is we've got a surface of the Earth, and we're not exactly sure of the surface of the Earth, and then it has to tile maps on top of that surface of the Earth. And if anything is off just a little bit, you'll be underground. So this is underground, but as soon as the rocket clears the ground, we'll get a better view. So yeah, there we go. So the rocket's taking off. We're looking at it just like we would in a real rocket launch. It's going away from us, getting smaller and smaller and smaller in the sky. But at least we got a trajectory we can see. It's not like a high power launch where the rocket all of a sudden suddenly disappears because it goes so far away. At least we have some way of tracking it here in the launch visualizer. So that is kind of cool. Let's do another simulation and with a different rocket. And just do a quick one here. So I'm going to choose a different design. Go under my user designs. I got a flamethrower rocket here. I'll select that one. This is going to be a cluster engine. And I'm going to choose a different launch site this time because I don't want to be underground. It's much cooler when you're above ground. There's a Cloudbuster website. This is kind of a cool site. Click OK for that. And let's see where this one is. Okay, so is this the site? Yes, this is a really cool site, I think. Yes. Okay, so we got some clear land over here, so I'm going to put my launch pad. I'll just stick it in this field right here by double-clicking and then confirm launch site down here. And it grabbed the latitude and longitude and the altitude. So now look at this launch site. We're almost 6,600 feet above sea level. Our starting state, we'll just leave it the same that we had it before. We're kind of launching to the east. We're going to leave the wind conditions the same, but we do have to load 2 new motors. So I'm going to choose an engine. I'm going to choose Aerotech E18 for one of them. Click OK, and we'll choose another one. Let's choose something different. This is a cluster, so we got a cluster, 2 rocket engines side by side, and I'm going to make them different, just to see what happens. So let's choose an E20. I don't want to make them too far apart. We'll see what happens when they're like this. And choose a 10-second delay on that one. Click OK. Let's go to our flight events and deploy at maximum ejection delay, which is over here. And let's launch it. And let's do, we won't give a comment this time. This one only has a total of 75 Newton seconds. And simulate. And let's see what happens. while that's going on, I'm going to check over here in my comments. Joe Noble writes, have you tested scaling when RockSim goes live? It might become really slow when more people use it. He's talking about our RockSim visualizer here. What happens when this goes live to 1,000 people and they all want to use it at once? We are testing that, Joe. We're a little early to test everything yet. I'm underground again. I swear I used this launch site before. Let me cancel out of here and make some changes. I got something weird going on down here. I'm going to adjust my launch site. So on this launch site, I'm going to adjust my altitude above sea level. So I'm going to make it a little bit higher. So I'm going to add, I'll make it 6610. So I make sure that I'm above the ground. Okay, and then resimulate. Yeah, so Joe, we are testing it. I need to reconfirm my launch site, simulate it. We are testing it. We're using really fast servers, and we got a server farm. So as more users come on, it just automatically grabs another server and just keeps expanding outwards. Okay, so now I am above ground. Let me zoom out a little bit. I lost my rocket. Let's go back to home and zoom out. Okay, so I am above ground. Let's launch this thing. Let me change it to, I don't want to be a ground observer view. I want to be on the trajectory view. This site is really cool because if I zoom out even further, I am in a valley. And I don't know if you can tell that, but here's a mountain range over on this side. And we have a mountain range over on the other side. This is a really pretty launch site, if you ask me. And this is the cool thing about the flight visualizer, is being able to launch at other people's launch areas and seeing what it would be like. So my launch pad is sitting right down here, and I'm just spinning around to try to get a perspective on where I'm actually launching from. You can see the valley that I'm in. And let me zoom back in a little bit. And now let's go ahead and launch it. So the rocket should be taken. Oh, I turned off smoke. Did I turn? No, the smoke is still on. I think I turned off tracking smoke. So we just have thrust smoke going on right here. The rocket is arcing up over the top. It looks like it was a pretty straight launch. Not too bad, because I remember I have two engines in there. One is putting out more thrust than the other. I've been playing with this software for so long now that I'm just, for me, I'm still like a kid in the candy store, though. I'm going to pause it and zoom it, see where it's going to land. I don't want to wait 89 seconds. Come on, can you grab me? It's, I think the issue is, yeah, now I'm kind of locked up. I think because I'm trying to stream and receive a lot of information here at the same time. So yeah, I am completely locked up. So I'm just going to close the window, and I want to get to the next announcement. So I'm closing that, and let me come back over here to, this is RockSim. But the big announcement today is we are officially releasing Roxim Pro. So a lot of you have been waiting for Roxim Pro. Let me open up Roxim Pro. Because what you saw in the flight visualizer that's online is also built into Roxim Pro. So here I have the Peregrine rocket. Let me look at it in 3D. Let me click off of that. Okay, so here's the Peregrine rocket, and let's load a rocket motor into that, load an engine. And if you've been coming to these RockSim Lives, you've kind of seen me played with this a little bit. Come on, click over here. Okay, so we've got an H148 motor here. The difference in RockSim Live, or Roxim Pro, versus RockSim is in the simulations, where RockSim is just a 3 degree of freedom simulator. So you have up is 1 degree, with the wind is another degree, and the rocket can also pitch. So it can pitch into the wind or against the wind. That's 3 degrees of freedom. RockSim Pro is 6 degrees, so it has those 3, plus it has in and out, so it's kind of like crosswind. And then I can also yaw, which is crosswind like this, and I can also roll like this. So that's 6 degrees. Just like you saw in the flight visualizer just a few seconds ago, that's 6 degrees of freedom. And so it basically does that, but it's in RockSim. So where the flight visualizer, which I just showed you, that's on the website, that only allows you to simulate rockets. You can't design a rocket there. You can only bring in a rocket from RockSim or Roxim Pro. So you design it in RockSim, you save it, you upload it to the cloud on the flight visualizer, and then you run your simulations there. So you can see all that I just showed you. In Roxim Pro, instead of putting it up on the cloud, you can just do it on your machine. But the difference between Roxim Pro and the launch visualizer that's online is the price tag. Roxim Pro, because it's on your desktop, is going to be significantly more expensive. So if you can wait for the launch visualizer online, basically you have Roxim Pro just by having RoxSim and the launch visualizer. And you already have RoxSim right now, so basically you're just subscribing to the launch visualizer, and you don't have to subscribe to Roxim Pro. So I would recommend for most users to just wait for the launch visualizer. You're going to be able to do everything that I can show you right here, except for designing rockets. So just get RoxSim and then the launch visualizer, and it'll save you money. It'll save you a lot of money. RoxSim Pro right now today, the price is $30 per month, and that's per month. So it gives you 30 days for $30, and then if you want to do the next month, it's another 30 days. And there's no discounts for clubs or for schools, or everybody wants a discount, but there's no discount, unfortunately, because there's a lot of expense that went into it, and we've got to try to recoup it now. Just wait for the launch visualizer, and the price will come way down. What's the price, Tim? I can't announce that yet, but it's going to be far significantly cheaper. Okay, so getting back to here, we've got we've loaded an H148. Now we're going to our flight events, and I've got, this is a dual deployment setup, and this is different in Roxim Pro than RoxSim. To do dual deployment, for the second parachute, it's always a little bit different. So this is our first parachute, our drogue parachute, and it's set to deploy at Apogee. And then we have a main parachute, which is 48 inches in diameter, and this one needs a second criteria. So if we just said, like in RoxSim, deploy it at 300 feet, as the rocket's taken up and it goes past 300 feet, it's going to deploy right there going up. But we want it to hit Apogee first, then come down, and then deploy at 300 feet. So we have to first say, reach Apogee. This is your first criteria. You have to reach Apogee. And then when we get to an altitude of less than, and this is important, less than, if you say greater than 300 feet, then it's going to deploy right at Apogee, because Apogee is greater than 300 feet, right? So you have to say less than 300 feet, deploy the main parachute. Okay, so now our starting state. And so this is where the flight visualizer is actually a little bit nicer, because it actually shows the rocket on the pad, and you can see what changes you make, where here you're just making them kind of blind. I can't see it sitting on the launch pad, and I can't tell that my azimuth angle is which way it's pointing. And I also don't have a pre-roll control in RoxIm Pro. So RoxIm Pro is not quite as nice as the launch visualizer. But I can also give it a starting rate. Simulation controls, just leave that alone. Launch conditions, so this is our launch site. This again, here you need to know your latitude and longitude. There's not a database that's saved with the software. So you have to know where you're launching, and if you don't know your latitude and longitude and your altitude above sea level, you got to get it from somewhere. I would recommend like Google Earth. You can get it for free, but that's this right here. And then here's our wind table, where we can see our wind. I got a wind coming out of the west, which is 270 degrees at 8 miles an hour from sea level all the way up to 50,000 feet. So my launch pad location here is at 1,400 feet, but my wind is based off of sea level altitude. So that's also something you got to watch out for when you're doing this. You can't assume that this is ground level. This is above sea level. So I always set a sea level altitude and then an altitude that's like really, really high, which I know my rocket's not going to get there. And then I can hit flight profile. And this is going to bring up the launch visualizer as it's done with its simulation. Okay, so you can see it reached 864 feet there. Okay, so now this should look a lot like the launch visualizer that you just saw. Okay, so it's loading the maps in the background. And I have my preferences already set up, some weird preferences. So let me go to my preferences up here. I need the trajectory path to trail the rocket instead of being displayed before the rocket hits that point. Let me see if I got smoke and fire turned on, and I've got a red flame. Let's make it a Mojave green flame. So let's make it a green flame, click OK. My smoke is going to last for 4 seconds. Let's see, make sure I got everything else checked that I want. I want to display my weathercocking cone, and I'll click OK. So now here's the rocket sitting on the pad. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can get kind of the lay of the land where this launch site is located. This is along a nice creek right here, and I can kind of tell that looking at the terrain, we got some hills over here in the background. The maps are still loading in the background, so that you can kind of see that it looks like it falls off right over here. So if my rocket went down into the canyon over here, it's going to probably be a little harder to find. Okay, so let's go see this launch. Let's zoom in a little bit. And I want to see the trajectory view. And it reorients itself, of course. North is the black arrow, so north it would be down this way. And let me switch it around so north is kind of more straight up at the top of the screen for you. Okay, so there's the little rocket sitting on the pad, and let's launch it. This is going to be a 28-second flight. So let's see what happens. Rocket takes off. You can see, oh, did you see the green flame? Let's pause it. Oh, that was so cool. Let's back it up until we get to the green flame. Right there. Can you see that green flame? That nice Mojave green. That's awesome. Okay, the rocket's taking off. You can see this, the white is the thrust smoke. The blue is the tracking smoke. The rocket hits our apogee point up here. You can see the green dot. That green dot tells us that we're inside the weathercocking cone. So this is a really good flight. I would call this safe. And at this point, the rocket is drifting out. And you can kind of see the trajectory here. Let me pause it. And let's zoom in. So you can kind of see what happened. So here was the apogee point. So it launched from over here, which the launch pad was down here below the screen. It went up along the green line. It got to the apogee point, and the apogee is green, so it's inside the cone. And then the drogue chute deployed, and the rocket started coming down. When it got below 300 feet, right here, you can see where the dog leg is. Our main parachute popped out, and now you can see there's our main parachute, and we can see where it's going to land. And it landed right across the road at a distance of 337 feet from our launch pad. So that was a cool launch. I hope you enjoyed that. So that's Roxim Pro. That's what you want in Roxim Pro, is to see those simulations. Let me see if we have any questions over here. If you have a question, now I can start taking questions on, I can do Roxim, Roxim Pro, or the launch visualizer. Let me show you where to get Roxim Pro. If you go to the Apogee website, let me bring up a new window here and put it off onto this screen. So if you come over here and you go to Shop and you come to Rocket Software, you'll see Roxim Pro right here next to the RockSim. So click on that, and this gives you, a description of Roxim Pro. You got some screenshots here that, I'll kind of display those real quick. They're, kind of small right now. We got a little issue with our website on these screens. But you can look at those. Here's where you would order. It's only a download, so there's no DVD or CD-ROM. So you'll get an email link when you order it. It is a monthly subscription of $30, and here's where you add it to the cart. On this page we have an introduction, kind of showing you kind of what I just did, some sample simulations. Tells you what Roxim Pro is about, 6 degrees of freedom. Yeah, scroll down, just kind of showing you what I did. We got another video here on running your first launch simulation in Roxim Pro. I just turned that video on live right before we went live. And then there's also some other things that Roxim Pro can do. One, it can create what's called a splash pattern, and this is a splash pattern. Here was the launch point, and it shows you all the different locations that the rocket might land. You can see generally it's kind of an oval shape, and it runs, kind of, if north is straight up, it kind of runs from the northwest to the southeast, and that's kind of where the rocket would land. This triangle right in the middle is the nominal landing point where everything was perfect. That's where it would land. And all these other points are called uncertainty points, where things might be a little bit different. Like the wind might be at a different velocity, or it might be at a different azimuth angle. It might be your thrust was a little bit high or a little bit low, kind of like things that happen in real life. So that gives you an uncertainty plot. And this kind of explains all the different uncertainties that there are. The mass of the rocket could be a little bit different than what you predicted. The moment of inertia of the rocket might be different. The center of gravity location, the center of pressure location, the thrust axis might be a little bit off. You might have a chute failure, and this is the screen in Roxim Pro that you would adjust that. Then shows you some screenshots. Other things that you can adjust. In that uncertainty plot, you can actually click on the plot on those points, and it will bring up what changed to make it land in that specific location. You can also display that uncertainty or that splash pattern plot on Google Earth. So it's also in a 3D environment. So you can kind of see what's on the ground where your rocket is landed. So I just kind of blew up that launch site. So here's the launch point right here. Here's the trajectory up. The rocket came down. This is the nominal point right there. But then there's also these uncertainty points all around the launch area. But generally, the rocket is landing over here, which is kind of good. We just don't want it to go over here in the houses. So that's what you would use Roxim Pro for. If you just want to see the trajectory, just wait for the launch visualizer, which is coming. I'm just checking my comments over here. Glad to see you're using CN and CA rather than CL and CD. Okay, cool. He's talking about coefficient of normal force versus coefficient of lift and coefficient of drag. And that's in Roxim Pro. Most people don't know what all that means. You don't really have to worry about it too much. Also on this page, there's a lot of frequently asked questions. Like the number one is, if I purchase Roxim Pro, do I need to buy Roxim? And the answer is no. You only need one or the other. Why get both? But if you want to try out Roxim Pro for a month, you would still have Roxim, which you already have. You can get Roxim Pro for a month, try it out, see if you like it. Or you can just, and what we think is going to happen is people are going to just try it out for a month, see what happens, then wait for the launch visualizer. And if you want to know what features are in the launch visualizer, if you come down here on this page, this is the Roxim Pro page, it will tell you this little chart right here. And if I double click on it, oops, no, I can't double click on it, but I can zoom in on it. And this, because this is a scalable vector graphic, and it will tell you, what the difference are between Roxim, Roxim Pro, and the launch visualizer, which is a web browser version. So, you can design rockets in Roxim or Roxim Pro, but you can't in the launch visualizer. And only Roxim Pro does the splash patterns. So that, is a chart you want to look at so you can make up your mind what you want to do. There's no pressure to do any of them. If you want to save money, like I said, get Roxim and then wait for the launch visualizer to come out online later this fall. Okay, so let me go to questions. No questions today, so go ahead and type a question. I'm here to answer questions about Roxim, because that's what this is about. This is about Roxim Live. I'm here to answer your questions of how to use Roxim, how to get the most value out of it, and how to become a better rocketeer by being able to predict what is going to happen when you go ahead and launch your real rocket. Karen Ma says, this is really cool, especially is free. Well, Karen, there's portions that are free. If you are not paying for it, you're going to be limited in some aspects. For example, in the launch visualizer, if you're just on the free version, your rockets are going to stop at Apogee. They're not going to come back down to the ground. And we have to do that because the Roxim Pro and the launch visualizer are actually regulated by the federal government, the United States federal government. They are classified as EAR-99, which means that we can't sell them to people that are in North Korea and Iran and people with nefarious intent. Those people would probably like to know where the rocket's going to land, because they might want to aim the rocket at something. So we have to stop the simulations at Apogee. It's only when you actually pay for the software that you can actually see where the rocket's actually going to land. So that's one stipulation in the free version. The other stipulation is, in the free version, you're going to be limited to A, B, and C motors. So if you want to fly Ds and higher, then you have to log in. And if you want to fly high power motors, you actually have to subscribe to it. So, and you really want to see where those high power motors are going to land. So there's going to be some limitations in the launch visualizer, and you'll see them because there's going to be little lock icons. That's, another thing that you're not going to be able to do in the free version is change your azimuth angle. You can only go straight up. Again, we've got to limit it because we got to recoup our investment. We know that we're creating something really cool, but it costs a lot of money. And I've been on this project for, by the time it comes out, will be almost 2 years since we first started. And I've been paying programmers and not getting any money back. So we do have to recoup that expense, unfortunately. So John Doe's here. I just bought RockSim. Can I upgrade to Roxim Pro? Yes, you can upgrade. It's $30 a month. There is no upgrade fee. Roxim Pro is subscription based, so you pay by the month. So if you have RockSim, just keep it. Like I said, when RockSim, the launch visualizer, the online version becomes available, you'll have RockSim to design rockets, and then you'll have the cool features of Roxim Pro of being able to simulate it in a three-dimensional environment. So you're not out anything here, Joe, or John, by having RockSim. You haven't lost any money. And if you want to try out Roxim Pro to see the 3D effects, it's $30 a month. Ashley Carrier, so Roxim Pro will not mess with our current install of RockSim. That is correct. You can have Roxim Pro and RockSim installed on the same machine. They don't interact with each other. The only time where they might interact with each other is when you have them both running at the same time, and you can do that. You can have them both running at the same time because they're completely different programs. And if you open the same design, like if I open that Peregrine design, like I had over here. So here's Roxim Pro. You can see I have Roxim Pro open. And I think I also have RockSim open. Looking down here. Okay, so I also have RockSim open. See, I have Roxim Pro here on the top, RockSim right here, and I have both of them are open to the Peregrine rocket. So if you ran a simulation in one and ran a simulation in the other, that would be fine until you started saving things. So now when you save it, you put one over here, and then the next time you save from the different program, you're going to override it. So that would be the only issue that you might face. But other than that, they are completely separate. So you should have no problems running both of them if you wanted to try it out. Karen Ma says, I see. I probably will still try the visualizer though. Hope it's not too pricey. It's not going to be too pricey because we want you to continue to do it every month. And if you start dropping off, then we've priced it too high. Ashley Carrier says, thank you. Karen Ma says, how do you create a paper transition for 2 diameter tubes and print out the template for the transition in RockSim? Okay, that's a good question. I can answer that one. Okay, so let's start with a new design here, or open up something that has a transition in it. And I know that the, let me see if I can find a design with a transition. That rocket, the midge. Let's see if the midge has a transition in it. Do I want to save my changes? No. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a. Okay, so here we have, Karen. We have a rocket with a transition in it. Now you said paper. This one is obviously not paper because we can't make a curved transition like shown here with paper. Not easily, not without cutting it. This shape here is a special shape. Let's go to the transition. Let's open up that transition. But I'm going to change the shape and make it out of paper. So here is the transition, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And see, right now our shape is an ogive, and to make a paper transition, it's going to be conical. Because you can make a conical transition. You can see the transition shape changed here. Now, to print it out, like what Karen would like to do, so she wants to know how to make it first. How to create. Okay, so I got to back up. Okay, cancel. No. So I am going, this one is actually a two-stage rocket. So let me delete the booster stage. To delete the booster stage, go to Design Attributes and change from the number of stages from a two-stage rocket to a one-stage. And it's going to ask, do you want to really do that? And I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now I'm at a single-stage rocket. And by doing that, there's no booster stage down here. And now I'm going to delete the transition and the body tube, because as you are designing a rocket, normally you would design from the top down. Delete this one as well. Okay, so now, so here's our rocket. We got a nose cone and a body tube. And what I want to recreate is what we just saw, with another tube off here to the bottom and a transition in the middle. So we need to add parts to this tube right here, and I'm going to add a transition. So I'm looking for a transition. So I added the transition. It always looks in the database first, so I'm going to click cancel out of that. And now I'm on my transition screen again. And make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, so now we want to create the transition, and we'll start by creating the shoulders, because there's a special feature right here. When you click on the shoulder tab, you can choose tubes, and it will automatically calculate the diameter for you, so you don't have to actually measure it with a caliper. So on my front tube, I know it's a 0.74 inch, so I know this is based on my own experience. I know that 0.74 inches is a BT20, which is a 20 millimeter or an 18 millimeter tube. So my front shoulder, and it doesn't matter what is smaller or larger, the front or the back. My front one is already defined here. So I'm going to choose a compatible body tube, and when I do that, it's going to automatically calculate the diameters for me. And this is why I want to choose a tube. So I could actually go here and make it 0.74 inches, but when I choose a compatible tube, it's also selecting the inside diameter of the tube as well as the outside. So I'm going to click on that, find my 18 millimeter tube, click OK. And this right here, this blue line, is actually the shoulder. And it already threw a shoulder in here that is almost 2 inches long. And I'm going to say my shoulder is 0 inches. Well, let's make it 0.5 inches for right now. 0.5 inches. That is not right. What did I do wrong? 18 millimeter tube, click OK. This is definitely wrong. Choose a compatible tube. It should definitely be 18 millimeter, not a 13 millimeter. Click OK. For some reason it thinks it's 13 millimeter. Because 0.71 is a BT or an 18 millimeter tube. See if I go to millimeters, see it's 18 millimeters. So that's weird. But I'm going to say, okay, so I got my shoulder length. Let's make it again 0.5 inches. Okay, so it's there, and now my rear shoulder. Also, I'm going to choose a 13 millimeter tube and see what happens. That is definitely wrong. Because I know a 13 millimeter tube is 0.536 on the outside diameter. This is the shoulder diameter. So my shoulder is actually, I'm doing this from memory, 518 and 0.5 inches long. So now I have two shoulders but no transition in the middle. To make the transition, I'll go to the General tab and just change the length. Whoa, okay, so because I didn't specify that rear diameter, 0.536. There we go. Okay, so that was weird. When I went to the shoulders, it chose the wrong inside diameter, but the correct outside diameter. That's interesting. Okay, so I got my transition. So now to print, so that's how you design. And then to print it, you got to do a couple of things to print it. You got to think like you're doing this in real life. So the material, it can be any material, so I'll just choose paper. But in real life, to do a transition, it has to be hollow, because you can't wrap something that's solid. And then the wall, you got to give it a wall thickness. So I'm going to give it like 0.01 inches. I'm just guessing here of the wall thickness of the paper. You'd actually want to measure it. So now to print it, you want to hit export template, but you have to do one additional thing, and that is to clear the shoulders off of the transition. So I'm going to go back here to shoulders, and now I'm going to just say clear the shoulder values, clear that, clear that. It leaves the outside diameters the same, it just clears the shoulders off. So now it's just like a real transition that you would print out. You're printing out the shroud first, and that's this, and then you'd add the shoulders later. So now I can go export template, and it's going to ask me where to put it. I'm going to throw it on the desktop, and I'm going to save it as an SVG. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. So I'm going to save it there, and it saved it. It tells me it saved it, and click OK. I'm going to say OK to here. And now I'm going to, an alternate way that you can do this is by going to the print menu and go print here. I don't want to print any simulation stuff. I don't want to print any drawings, but I do want to print templates, which is right here. And I want to print the transition. And since I'm not hooked up to a printer here, I'm going to print it to a PDF and open the PDF so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to Additional Settings and say, make sure it says Print to PDF right here. So if you're printing and it's not printing to your printer, it's because your additional settings, you have it checked here to print to a PDF. And in this case, I want to print to a PDF. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to bring up a print dialog thing here. And I'm going to say print. And it printed it. And it put it in my applications folder, the RockSim application. And then there's a folder inside of that called PDF prints. So I got to kind of remember where it saved it. So I can click OK. And it printed it. So now I just got to open it up. So I got to go to here. I need to go to my applications folder. RockSim, here's my RockSim folder. And then here's the PDF prints folder. Open that. And here is the transition. And let's open that up. And this should open up in preview. So I'm kind of looking at it like it's a sheet of paper. Let me zoom out so you can see this is like a full sheet of paper. And there's the transition. So this is what I would cut out on my paper to make the transition. So and the other thing that I did is I also saved it to the desktop as an SVG file. So if I go to my desktop, and here's the SVG right here. So let's, on this one, you're going to need a special program to open it. And you're going to need a program that can open vector graphics. So Adobe Illustrator will work if you have that. There's a program called Inkscape that's free. Inkscape can open these as well. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to open this in Illustrator to show you what it would look like. So now Illustrator is opening, and there it is. It's basically the same, except for it's not on a sheet of paper anymore. Now it's just giving me the bounding box of this. Now the advantage of opening this in a vector program is you can now modify it. So if you wanted to add a tab to this, I could come over here and take my drawing tool and, you know, just start clicking, adding points. you know, so now I added a tab to this thing, and so now I can print it out. If you just did it on the paper, you could actually just take a pen and draw it. You could do it that way too. But by doing it on a computer, now you can save it, and so the next time you bring it up, you don't have to do that again. And I can see we are running way long here today, so I'm going to quit here because this is not about Illustrator. I just wanted to show you the things that you can do once you have RockSim. So Karen, to answer your question, you have to. There was a couple of things we have to do. We had to make it hollow instead of solid. We had to get rid of the transitions on the either end, and it has to be. It can only be conical. It won't allow you to print out a transition that's like ogive shape that has a curved line. So those three criteria, and if you do those three, then you can export out or print out the transition template, and you can actually cut it out into a shroud. Okay. Mark Sell wrote, I am making an electronics bay in my nose cone using a sled and centering rings. Can I only add a tube to my nose cone? Can you show me how to add a sled? That's a good question, Mark. Maybe I can get to that one next time. We're running way long here. We only want to go we wanted to only go an hour, and we're now an hour and 6 minutes. I'm getting confused. So thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. We got 17 viewers online right now, which is really good. It's kind of like talking to a room of 17 people. And if you would get nervous talking in front of a group, just think of how I feel talking into a group of 17 people, plus trying to worry about technology at the same time, worrying about my cameras out there, worrying about the monitor over here, worrying about the software here. I got 3 programs running right now. I got RockSim, Roxim Pro, and the launch visualizer, plus the software to run. And I've got YouTube going right now. So I got a lot of going on this inside my mind. So I'm kind of worried about several different things. So you can see how frazzled I can become. Keep things simple, people. When you're launching a rocket, don't try to do too many things on one launch. Keep it simple. And that's the lesson you learn. And it applies also to doing live streams. So thank you. I got to end. So any more questions that come in, I'll try to answer the next time. So thanks for coming to RockSim Live. So in 3, 2, 1, go out and launch something.